Interestingly enough, I'm pretty sure I read this on Sabbatical, is that it comes from the word Sabbath, which of course is like a religious word, or goodness, it probably stems from even Judaism maybe, but it's the idea of rest, right? So the Sabbath day being a rest day. So I'm pretty sure that that's the etymology, that sabbatical comes from this. So to me, it was an escape. It was rest from the intensity, the busyness of life, but especially work. As a startup founder, probably similar to many startup founders and business people, it's easy to let it become all-encompassing, where even on a day off, are you really on a day off? Are you really letting your mind rest?
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow? What do you do when you feel the pressure of work, the stress, maybe even anxiety? Well, you might be feeling burnout, but it might be something a little bit more serious. Today, we look at one leader who had to really analyze what was going on in his life, and he couldn't figure out what it was for a little bit, but he finally found something that worked. We talk about the leader's sabbatical today. What does it mean for you to actually unplug, disconnect, and really create space for you to just get out in nature? Maybe it's be with your thoughts. Maybe it's just being away from the rush and the pressure and the decisions that you have to make. The leader sabbatical is not something that you should just rush into, but you may need it more than you think. Maybe this is something you might want to put on your horizon for next quarter. Maybe it's next year. But I believe that if you can actually take this, it actually can benefit your business in a huge way, because you can rally your people to say, we care about your trust and our trust, and we maybe add this to the mix of benefits that you offer over time as you figure out it does add benefit by you doing it first, leading by example in this case. Today's guest is Sam Eitzen, and he is with the SnapBar. And we talk about some of the pivots he went through COVID, but also the real heart of this conversation is around his sabbatical. And what does that look like? What caused it? What did he do inside the sabbatical that made him actually feel the benefits of it? What did he remove from his phone? You might be surprised by this, but also what happened afterwards? What were the real core benefits of having this time away? The sabbatical could be something you need. He mentioned anxiety, and a lot of the clients I work with feel a sense of anxiety, and I can help them through this to help them find the calmness that they need to lead their company to the next level. Now, I'm not trying to pitch you my services here, but if I can help you in any way, I can help you get more clear about who you are, how you spend your time, what's most valuable for your company to move forward, then I would love to serve you. Just check out my resources at genehammett.com. And if you want to have a conversation with me, just go to Start Your Journey and we can find time to talk that works for you. I'd love to support you and even challenge you to help you grow and create the strategy for success in your business and help you overcome the anxiety or burnout that you're facing. Now, here's the interview with Sam. Sam, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks, Gene, for having me.
Welcome back to the show. We had you on a long time ago to talk about SnapBar, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today, but there's really something interesting that you've just went through that we're going to talk about. I think a lot of leaders are curious about what that is and how it works. But before we get there, let's talk about the SnapBar. Give us I know you've pivoted through this whole change. So who are you now?
Yeah, so SnapBar is now primarily a tech company building software products that do a lot of the same stuff that we were doing, still related very much to like photos and selfies, but in the world of virtual events, which, as most people know, has been kind of all-encompassing for the past year. In the meantime, though, during March and April of last year, 2020, our business took a massive hit and we lost about every stream of income and source of revenue we had in the span of about 3 weeks. A huge flood of cancellations, which almost sunk the ship. But we were able to kind of bridge a gap where we had zero revenue coming in with a desperate pivot to something called Keep Your City Smiling, or keepyourcitysmiling.com, which is a gift box company, actually, of all things, completely unrelated to what we're back doing again now, but related enough to what our clients needed at the time to make sense. And it did really well for us for just under a year is when we kind of ran that.
Well, I can appreciate the pivot. I think a lot of people here had to pivot in some way, but you've made some very drastic shifts. One, completely away from the business that you were in to something different, and then revitalizing or reimagining the entire SnapBar business. So now you have a software. What's the core of that, the functionality of that software?
So we're building out a platform, and the core of it is that using a technology called WebRTC, which is essentially like being able to use the browser for a lot of fun stuff. We can take selfies through a browser and manipulate a camera that records video and takes photos through a browser versus through an app. So that if you're running a big event, all you need to do is have someone scan a QR code or click on a link that takes them to this like immersive microsite where they can take a selfie, brand it, add stickers, do all these things, share it directly to social without ever having to download an app, which, you've probably been to events before where they're of course incentivizing everyone to take a photo, post to social media, use the hashtag please so that we can find it, right? And this aggregates all of that for our clients who are B2B in a way that pulls it into a gallery. They can look at the analytics, they can share those things, engage with the people that way.
I've had clients that do some really interesting stuff through WebRTC. So what you described here is something that I could see the gap that was not there before that is now. And as we go back to events, this would still be probably something I guess they could use, and especially because most events will be hybrid moving forward.
Exactly. And it took me a couple minutes, more than that. I wish it took me a couple minutes to realize that what we were building would absolutely apply in person just as well as it could online. In fact, in certain situations more so. So we work with a lot of sports teams at big stadiums, for example. And how annoying is it realistically to have to go through a stadium, find at some level where a photo booth is set up, stand in a line, wait in a line, finally get to a screen that 100 other people have touch the screen, use it all. And that was our business. I mean, we were doing this. So we would of course make money doing that. Now we can put a QR code on a massive screen and have 50,000 people in a stadium at once access a website, take selfies, customize them for the brand that's hired us, say the Seattle Sounders, to have a local example of where we are. And it's a better product. Like that's a better solution than the in-person photo booth. So we're still exploring how to make that known to people, but it's really exciting. And that's one of the reasons we just let it kind of completely change the SnapBar trajectory.
I love this idea. I'd love to continue to talk to you about it, but we came here to talk about something completely different. So I think a lot of people may not understand what this word sabbatical is.
Yeah.
What is your definition of a sabbatical?
Yeah. So, interestingly enough, I'm pretty sure I read this on Sabbatical, is that it comes from the word Sabbath, which of course is a religious word, or it probably stems from even Judaism maybe, but it's the idea of rest, right? So the Sabbath day being a rest day. So I'm pretty sure that that's the etymology, that sabbatical comes from this. So to me, it was an escape. It was rest from the intensity, the busyness of life, but especially work. As a startup founder, probably similar to many startup founders and business people, it's easy to let it become all encompassing, where even on a day off, are you really on a day off? Are you really letting your mind rest?
Well, let's talk about that. Before you decided to do a sabbatical, what was it like in your world?
Yeah, so it reached a negative tipping point in December of 2020. So last year, of course, for everyone was intense and wild. And for me in December, it resulted in what at the time I thought was actually a heart attack. I woke up in the middle of the night, my heart was pounding, couldn't go to sleep, became very nervous and scared. And there was no pain, so I didn't go to the emergency room. Thankfully, I am fine, and it was not a medical emergency, but it scared me at 4 a.m. enough to kind of jolt me into action. And that was the first of many series of what I've come to attribute or learn were like heart palpitations, pretty severe heart palpitations brought on by anxiety. I had no clue at the time. I genuinely thought it was just a medical situation. And as a result of that medical situation that I thought it was, I went on a diet. I started exercising more. I was trying to get better sleep and do all these things to keep my heart healthy, cut out salt, and went to the cardiologist and gone to the doctors and actually learned that it was anxiety flaring up. And I just didn't think it would ever flare up that way.
Now you're pretty young. I don't know what you're afraid to
33,
share what your age is.
I'm 33. 33.
So I'm 50 and I have to take these things pretty seriously, even though I don't have any issues right now.
Yeah.
But I think I would have had to go to the doctor.
Yeah. There's some of these hard things that run in my family. I'd known enough people that have dealt with these things even at a young age to where it was definitely not something I was taking lightly. The problem for me, the reason I just did not attribute it to anxiety was I didn't think it could result in that type of like bodily response. I don't feel stressed most of the time. Like mentally, I don't feel like an anxious, stressed out person, but it's obviously going somewhere. Again, this is not just me saying this. This is what I have been taught over the past few months by doctors and naturopaths. And yeah, I was clearly not paying attention to how and where it was like going in that sense. And so that was really the first time in January after dealing with that and some insomnia related to it and just being even, the hard part about any of that kind of stuff is you're already kind of anxious and maybe stressed out. And then this happens and it adds to everything that you were feeling before. So again, the negative tipping point, as I said earlier, was that, wow, I need to do something. I need to escape the routine. Once I was able to pinpoint it to like actually anxiety and just burnout. So that's how that idea started.
So I've always known what a sabbatical is. I've kind of maybe dreamed about taking one someday, completely unplugging and being away from business and ideas and thinking, being more creative and all that stuff, resting on a beach somewhere, 6 or 8 weeks. Was that something you thought about before this, or did it come about as a solution to what you were going through?
Yeah, it was just this. I hadn't thought about it. The idea came from my brother, who is my co-founder, and one of the key reasons I was able to do it, actually, because 6 weeks is a long time for any small business, even at a big business, right? To shirk, and kind of say bye to all your responsibilities. But my brother had taken a 5-week vacation to Southeast Asia, and it was really long when it was not a sabbatical. It was actually a vacation a few years ago. Just because when you're all the way out there, why fly back in 2 weeks was his logic, right? Like, I'm going to try to go for it and visit as many countries as I can. It ended up kind of being like a sabbatical. He had poor reception, was not using his laptop much, was traveling around on beaches, of course, had a lot of stuff going on. So it wasn't a complete retreat, but not connected to work. And for him, it actually did wonders. And he wasn't even in a period of intense stress, but it was just really great for him in the aftermath to look at, wow, look what this disconnect did. So when he said to me, maybe you should do what I did. I have 3 kids. I wasn't going to take a 5-week vacation to Southeast Asia, but that immediately conjured up like, oh, a sabbatical. I used to work for RAI, and RAI, as part of their culture program, actually have sabbaticals at, I think, the 10-year mark, the 15-year mark, and the 20-year mark. And they start at about a month, then go to a month and a half, and then you get 2 months paid the longer you stay at RAI. And it actually does not matter at what level of the company you are. So this is just a time-based thing. So I actually first heard about it then. And because this was not going to be a 6-week vacation to the team, I pitched it as a sabbatical because the idea was I really am going to do more than I have done before in disconnecting. So I deleted apps off my phone, didn't open my laptop. They had to call me if there was an emergency. And that is actually not even how I take a vacation. Even on vacation, I'm sometimes opening up my email, I'm seeing stuff pop up on Slack, and it then just takes you right back to work. I'm sure you've had that experience. It's tough to disconnect.
Let's look at this idea of a sabbatical versus a vacation. Many of you take vacations where you will get away from the office, don't have to go in at all. You get to go someplace that you want to go with your family or maybe with your loved one, and you're able to disconnect and unplug. Now, you may rationalize to yourself that you can actually get a little bit of work done. You can actually check in, maybe get an hour here, hour there, very focused, be in and out, and it won't have an impact to you. But here's the thing. You're really defeating the purpose of really getting away because you're not truly away if you're checking in on a regular basis. So my encouragement to you is you may not be ready for sabbatical yet. Have a vacation that is completely disconnected as much as you can, as much as you can muster. Now, you may be looking at a sabbatical, and it is quite different. It is very intentional about being disconnected and being away from work and away from the decisions and the pressure. And so what you have to decide what's right for you. But I wanted to make sure we have this little bit of conversation and urging you to actually unplug as often as you can to recharge and be ready for your team. They need the best leader you can be, not the leader that's left over after you're exhausted from all the work that you're doing. Back to Sam. I think a lot of leaders rationalize about vacations and saying, but I'll just do a couple hours in the morning. That'll be my thing. Yeah. No one will know because I'll get up before anyone anyway.
Right.
But I think they're missing the point that it actually should be time for you to recharge and rest mind, maybe even disconnect completely. My wife has helped me with this quite a bit. When you think about how did you how did you actually, get up to the point where you can take the sabbatical? I know you can't, it probably doesn't do very good to work really hard intensely for the 6 weeks.
Right up before it. Exactly. Like I said, having a co-founder and having him be my brother, hugely beneficial. And I realized if I didn't have that, it would just inherently be even more challenging than it already was to get all the ducks in a row. But beyond that, I made sure to pick a date in the future that was right after our first quarter. So I started it in April, and we had just finished our OKR sessions, like our whole OKR framework for the first quarter. I was involved in setting everything up for the second quarter, and then basically took the first month and a half of Q2 off. So I had wrapped up my projects. I had delegated my email inbox via the apps that we use to both my co-founder and my COO, so that all of the email communication coming in there was not something I had to be responsible for. I deleted the apps off my phone, gave my phone number to everyone that needed it. And beyond that, I mean, as my job as a CEO, I'm not involved in the intricate details of getting every day at SnapBar moving forward. So of course I have that luxury in my position to not be so wrapped up in some of that technical work, but I did make sure that all of my big projects were taken care of and finished.
Did you do anything during the sabbatical that we could learn from around, truly unplugging? Was it a retreat? Was it meditative?
Yeah, both actually. So part of it was vacation. I have 3 kids. We went to southern Utah for 12 days and drove around in the desert and visited some national parks. I got outside a ton more. That was actually a big reason that we went on this road trip. We're not really a road trip family, although we loved it, and now we'll probably become one. But spending time outside was actually something that my naturopath told me I needed to do more of for that just general anxiety. I'm in front of a screen, I'm in front of the news, I'm reading what other startups are doing. There's this competitive drive in me that's like always not on edge, that's a little severe, but like wanting to do more. And I think actually she mentioned it. It was the first time I'd heard it. And I've since seen a couple of articles about this trend called forest baths. I don't know if you're familiar. It's this Japanese principle, and it basically is just like getting out into nature, letting like nature wash over you. And I don't think I approached it just like that, but I got outside more. I exercised a bunch, which I know for me has just helped a ton in my mood and general feeling of well-being. I took actually within my sabbatical a completely solo retreat for 3.5 to 4 days, where I was around nobody that I knew in a different city by myself. And all I did was hike, read, bike. That's it. Hadn't done that ever, I don't think, since I was single, honestly, or since I've gone on like in work trips from that perspective. Those are probably like the 3. Oh, and then I mean the obvious, right, which is just like making sure that I was actually disconnected, because I am just like all those other entrepreneurs and business people who say, yeah, perfect, I'll get up in the morning, answer my email for a day for an hour or two before anyone's up, and it'll be like I'm still on vacation. And the problem is that it's not that way, that your mind is engaged, it's bringing things to mind. So that was something I was just really strict with myself about, and for the first time in about a decade I was able to maintain that strictness. I actually had to tune in for some tax stuff. Personal taxes were due and didn't pick the best window, but that was it, and it wasn't complicated.
So we got a good picture of what was going on before. We got a good picture of what was going on during. So now let's look at after. Like, what's the real benefit behind this? Did you fall right back into the anxiety, or are you able to manage it completely different now?
Yeah, I mean, happy to say that I have not had any of those heart palpitations in months now. So that was huge. And of course, as related to that, I haven't had any insomnia. And again, the insomnia is literally caused by the fact that the heart palpitations were so strong that when I lay down, I can't sleep. So it wasn't anything worse. It was just that feeling. I have been told by a few members on my team that I seem calmer. Being gone for a month and a half removed me from enough of the day-to-day that I have not picked up some of the things I would do regularly. So I'm in charge of less meetings now, simply because I haven't needed to take them back on in terms of my responsibility. And I just had over time because no reason. I'm still exercising very regularly and bought a treadmill so that I could not have any excuse. I live in the Seattle area. It's raining a lot. I can easily come up with an excuse that it's too cold and wet to do anything. That was a big step. It's not giving myself excuses to not focus on my health. I mean, honestly, that's about it. I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening at SnapBar. We're busy, we're growing, but from an anxiety perspective, no, it's been really, really good and healthy. And I think the high of the sabbatical has worn off by this point. I've been back for about a month. And so the first week I was still walking on air. Just, it felt very easy, and I don't know. And now there's been enough situations happen at work and problems we had to deal with have like grounded me again, but they've not resulted in the same reaction. And I feel like my approach to them is a little bit calmer.
Now, I want to share a little story with you about going from anxiety to calm. I was working with a client one time, had a few hundred employees, and he knew that his 20 years of leadership would not take him to the next place he wanted. In fact, he was feeling a lot of pressure, and you might even say it's anxiety. That's the word he used. But the pressure that he was feeling was because the leadership that he had been using was very authoritarian. It was very much, let me tell you what to do next. And that caused a lot of pressure. He was getting way too many emails. And we had a few conversations to unlock what was really going on. Now, the best thing I can tell you that we did was helping him get really sober to the fact that he was suffering this anxiety and it wasn't the best way to lead his team. In fact, he knew that if he was calm, he could actually lead them through anything. I share this with you because I help people through some dark, deep stuff. And if you want to be a better leader, I can help you too. Just let me know how I can serve you. Now back to Sam.
What would you say to someone else that's considering that they're either having anxiety or burnout? Because I don't know if there's got to be an overlap between the burnout and anxiety, but I've felt burnout many times before. My wife is like, you've got to slow down.
Yeah. That's a great point, Gene. I'm not exactly sure what the overlap is. For me, it was for sure a combination. I was burned out. Last year was intense. And I imagine there are unfortunately so many business people and startup founders that are burned out right now, right? I mean, how could you not be from all the stuff that happened last year, the constant changes that meant for business? My encouragement would be, if you cannot take 6 weeks away, which I realize is like a lot harder to plan for, try to be super deliberate with 3 to 4 days. Because even within my sabbatical, the time that I took away from my family, from even like screens, from even the same like house and city that I lived in, was really helpful, surprisingly helpful. I only did that solo retreat on the recommendation of a friend who said, like, if you don't, I will book you a house to go do it. Like, they had done this kind of thing before. You have to take it, Sam. And so I did. And I found it amazing to just like basically not talk to anyone for 3 or 4 days and just spend a lot of time in my head, ride my bike a ton, get out in nature. And that's accomplishable for most people, I think. 3 to 4 days, a little extended weekend. I booked a tiny Airbnb. Like, it doesn't have to be super expensive. So I would encourage anybody to try it. And again, to try to disconnect. So let people call your phone, but get the apps off of it. Don't check email again, just for those 4 days, completely disconnect. I think that would be like an amazing first step. And I think that's the other easy piece is like, once you sense that, man, this is maybe helpful, then maybe you'll start shooting for longer and longer periods of time, over time, of course. I don't hope to need a sabbatical again anytime soon, but I loved it so much that I absolutely will probably take another really long one in 5 years or so, maybe sooner. I mean, honestly, I don't know. But it was really nice.
I want to ask you one final question before we wrap up, and really is this: 6 weeks sounds like an incredible amount of time to be away, and a lot of leaders will be like, "There's just no way." But are you doing anything different on your weekends now, so that you kind of can get back to that? Maybe it's disconnecting, like hardcore, 1 day or 2 days during that weekend. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, well, one of the changes that has not changed from sabbatical was the apps on my phone. And a big tip that I would share with anybody is, okay, there are obviously some apps that you have to have back on your phone. I left some completely deleted. The ones that I had to have back, using screen time on iPhone, and I'm sure there's Android equivalents, you can like basically block the app, like completely render it unusable after a certain period of time. I use this for my kids who have iPads, right? You can like control their use. So I'm babysitting my app usage in one sense. And for anything that I check just like by happenstance, like I just leave it off of my home screen. It's still on my iPhone. That's a new feature, but I don't have to see it. So you have to like search for it. And a big piece of like burnout and the anxiety piece is just that we live in a culture of constant onness, right? Like notification, think about this, let me get your attention. And cutting that out has been the biggest shift and change that I've seen between previous weekends and weekends now, and even evenings, right? Where when I'm at home, I am at home and I'm not checking stocks or crypto or work or Slack or any of these things that are just so easy to like steal my attention away from, rest, kids, family, working out, that kind of stuff.
I love all of this. I have felt, burnout before, and I've had to really, disconnect and really recharge. And I put rules around weekends. I put rules around my evenings that allow me to do this on a regular basis. But I got a couple of weeks coming up that's going to put me out in nature. So I'm kind of excited that you've shared this with me. Sam, thanks for being here and sharing your journey.
Absolutely. Pleasure.
Well, let me wrap up here. I know Sam is listening in to me, but what I take away from this is really the fact that we can get burned out. We can have anxiety things that are, we can't explain. Some of the times I get pressure, I get a little bit of heartburn, and it doesn't happen very much. But if I know when that heartburn comes in, I'm probably not doing the right things. And it's not just about what I eat, it's about the pressure and stress I'm under. So really pay attention to what's going on for you. And what Sam has talked about is, being able to structure the sabbatical. Yes, he has his co-founder brother, but you can have people on your team too that really can cover you to get away from 6 weeks. And if you don't, then that's really kind of a sign that you probably don't have the leadership team that you really think that you really need. And you need to get back and really focus on some of those things so that you don't have so much stress. And if you have any questions about what to do there, make sure you reach out to me, Gene@genehammett.com. I help leaders go from founders to CEOs, help them truly disconnect from the business, recharge, but really be the best leaders they can be. Let's go to genehammett.com. When you think of growth and you think of leadership, think of Growth Think Tank. As always, lead with courage. We'll see you next time.